Are you looking for something affordable, unique, and fun to give away in your merch orders or at your shows? Look no further. Hit me up today to order 1-inch buttons for your band, label, or other project. High-quality metal pinback buttons for your friends and fans' battle jackets, messenger bags, and guitar straps. $33 for 100 buttons shipped in the U.S. Message me on IG at Everything Remade to get started. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine. Sign up there for exclusive music, sneak peeks into what we're working on, as well as read through our entire back catalog of zines. And I'm also excited to announce that I've just started releasing daily pages from my debut graphic novel, Why I Hate the Festival. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now I'd like to play something for you. Tethered by Violent Abuse, featuring my new pal Kyle Schmitt on guitar and vocals. The song comes from their demo 2024, which you can find at violentabuse.bandcamp.com or at middlemanrecords.bandcamp.com. There's tapes available as well.
The band that easily is my favorite band in terms of that is Propagandhi. I mean, the message that they convey musically, lyrically, all of it, and just watching the progression of that band, I mean, to me, there's just nothing better than that band, in my opinion, and have definitely been a huge influence on the way I think as a person, the way I approach music.
All right. Okay. This is going to be like lost on a lot of people, but okay. So Propagandhi, obviously, like, S-tier band, you know, not to be corny, but like obviously everything about them, like even from back when, like, you know, the vocals sounded like Dave Mustaine, you know, even then, great band.
Yeah.
And then they get, you know, the guy from I Spy, and it's just like, how could
Todd.
this get better? And it just gets better.
Right.
Yeah, Todd. And,
yeah, that's like pinnacle to me.
And they just, I mean, even though like Less Talk is still my favorite album, just like as an album, even with the like those bass tones are like terrible. Don't get me started on that. But like as an album, that's still my favorite. But like everyone since then is just, it's so solid, it's so consistent, and you know, Todd being in there is amazing. But here's the other thing: when I was listening to Simp, because like I hadn't heard Simp before today, but I was listening to that. And immediately I was like, this reminds me of this band called Philocracy. And Philocracy was a crusty, like hardcore band from Barrie, Ontario, back in the like mid 90s. And I know for a fact that the Propagandhi and I Spy guys were like, this band rules. So it's funny that you say Propagandhi, and I was listening to Simp earlier, and I was like, this reminds me of Philocracy. Like, Philocracy influenced Propagandhi influenced you. It's like, you came back sounding more like Philocracy than Propagandhi. But yeah, I think that's awesome, and I love to get any chance to talk about Philocracy on the podcast, because I think they're really criminally unheard of for
I'm gonna have to go check that out after, because I don't think I know that just off of name alone. That sounds rad.
I will definitely it was this band, and you know, I was pen pals with them. I even talked to them on the phone a couple times, because I was like very, very early in Middleman Records. Like I'd released like my own band's couple of 7 inches and a compilation CD, and I was like, that band had just broken up, but they had like some stuff that wasn't released, and they had like a 10-inch, and I was gonna release like a CD of like everything, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
they they just like sent me the 10-inch, and it's this really cool, like, I mean, we were doing like our own, like, you know running off the copies for our 7-inch covers, like in our Photoshop class at school. Like we were doing like DIY, we were like doing it already.
Yeah.
But this 10-inch, like when it showed up at my house, I feel like it blew my mind in just a whole other like way, because it was just like not just like using resources like your school resources or whatever to get like free copies and whatnot, but the it was like somebody like took boxes from work and like cut them into 10-inch shapes and just like glued the like
That's
Xeroxes on
awesome.
them. So it was like
Yeah.
another level to that, like DIY, just like make your own shit, that I was just like being new or whatever, and it being the mid 90s, and not being able to see pictures of everything online all the time. This
Oh
just
yeah.
hadn't occurred. Like, just take some paper bags from the grocery store, or whatever, and
Right,
silk
right,
screen
yeah. I
them.
got plenty of those 7 inches,
Yeah,
that are in like manila envelopes, or
of
a
course.
CD that came in a lunch bag, a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely on the older end. I'm coming up on 40 in a couple years, and everything I've done musically, for the most part, it's just been DIY. How can we figure out a way to put this together? You know, uh, photocopying, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm very, very well tuned to the DIY aspect of finding a way to make shit.
yeah. And this isn't like a dig on hardcore or anything, like I'm definitely like 100% like embedded in the like screamo community, but the hardcore community can be, there can be some crossover, but that can
Oh, for
also be a
sure.
totally different thing. And so this isn't like a dig on any of that, but I do think it's weird that the hardcore aesthetic is still very much like all the covers look like they were Xeroxed, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
like but like a lot of hardcore, like a lot of bands are on this other level. Like hardcore got bigger than that, so like it's like, why are you doing this shit on like glossy paper? Like why are you having, like, I used to work at Imprint, I love Imprint, like like I love the folks at Imprint, but it's like, why are you having Imprint do these covers? Like, why? This looks like a Xerox. Why are and it's like I said, I'm not a part of that. I'm sure that there's still like so much of hardcore which is just like exactly like that. It's just like you get the 7-inch and it's like it was printed off like at somebody's computer lab, like, and
Right.
everything like that. But it's like the bands that get bigger and you see like their merch, and it's not like they didn't do it themselves, like they didn't screen print it themselves, like 7 color screen prints, like and
Uh-huh.
like $50 long sleeves, and I mean, but
Uh,
like
that shit's the shit that kills me.
right,
The money some of these bands are charging, I'm just like, what are you doing?
I
Like,
yeah,
it's so antithetical to me to charge $50 for a long sleeve shirt.
right, because that's what we were doing, right? We were getting everything that we could get at like into our record for free, so we can
Yeah.
make it the most, like the cheapest we can make it, so people can keep getting records and everything. And I mean, I do get like it's it costs more than ever to go and play shows, and
Yeah, for
everything
sure.
like that. But and especially, I'll never, like, I don't have to worry about ever playing in a band that would be somewhere where somebody says the words merch cut to me, like I don't
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
because like I would like I don't. I just there's a part of me that's like I know for a fact that like there's a part of me that's mm, okay. This thing this thing happened to me when I was like really little, and what the deal was, me and one of my friends. I mean, I must have been like fucking like 8 or 10 years old, and me and one of my friends like we straight up got in like a fist fight or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
like one of the next days it is like freezing, it is snowing, and I'm walking home, and his mom pulls over and is like, get in the car, like I'll drive you home, and I'm like, no. And his mom was like something about like, you can be proud, but like you can be proud in the car and you're warm and whatever, or you can be proud out there and you're freezing and it takes you 20 minutes to get home or whatever. Like I was like 8, so I just remember the part about like the feeling. It's like you're being proud instead of like sucking it up and just getting in the car and being comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like I'm still like that as far as like if somebody said merch cut to me, like I would just be like, no. If somebody
Yeah,
said
yeah.
like there's so much of me that's like I could do my music or whatever, I could be doing it like more of a service, like the music, like the idea of the music existing separate from my beliefs, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, I won't put, like, I'm not putting Coma Regalia on Spotify. Like, I'm not going on there and saying, take the whole body of my music, Mr. I'm investing in AI that perpetrates war crimes. Like, don't, you know,
Right, right.
like, and that's not like it's saying anything about anybody else that does. Like, everybody makes their own choices for how they want to do their music. But it's just like that bit of me is still so like it's just like I'm just like no, I no,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I mean, for me, like one of the deals that I want it to be accessible to people in the sense of like, this is more of a hobby. Like we're not making a career off of this. We're not doing crazy tours where we need to clear all this money. So like, especially for Simp, we got to this point where, we first started and none of us had played music in about a decade. So things had changed. People are charging $20 a shirt. And, if they can do that, that's rad. And we tried it. And, we sold stuff. But then it just hit this point where it's like, hey, we got this kind of surplus of money for the band. Let's just drop prices and just leave it low. So it's like our shirts are 10 to 15 bucks. I like, because to us, I would rather have people wearing the merch than us holding on to it to make that extra money when we only paid, whatever,
Yeah,
5, 6 bucks a shirt. Like to me, it's one of those. I want people to have access to our stuff, and I don't want money to be a thing that's going to stop them from getting that.
right.
And which is great now with the internet because obviously it sounds like we're in a similar age range where to get a hold of just music in general was such a chore. You know, going to a Hastings or a record store or whatever, flipping through every last CD, every last vinyl, trying to find something new, and then spending that money and like forcing yourself to like something you might not really, just because you're like, I put so much effort into it. So now that stuff's so accessible, I think it's awesome. But then at the same time, it kind of loses value, sort of, to a degree. Like I even see myself just like moving along quickly from one band to the next, where I would have never done that before. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those like I'm not trying to get rich. I'm not trying to make money. I just want if people enjoy my music, that's awesome. And if they want to buy our merch, that's super cool. And I want it to be as affordable as possible to where we're not just losing money because I did that for 15 years, just
Yeah.
actively lost money playing music. So it's kind of cool now coming back to it and not losing money. That's been rad. But no, I totally get it. Just like the stubbornness of holding on to certain values and ideals that you just don't want to give up.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody has like their, their lines in the sand or whatever, And I just have a lot of
Yeah,
them,
for sure.
I guess. I box myself in with all these lines in the sand. But I
Yeah.
mean, but that's fine because it's like the same thing. It's like, I'm not like, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, you talked about like you would lose money for like years and years, and so I'm at that point. It kind of sounds like the way you look at it now is like everything that you lost, like you're on a clean slate with each of these new bands. But like
Yeah, for sure.
me, like I have like the label stuff, and so this debt like chases me still to this day. Like
Right,
I would
right, right,
need I would need to just miraculously be handed like $20,000 tomorrow to have a clean slate.
right.
And I mean, so if anybody's got that, you can get my Venmo.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right.
but it's like, um, the other thing is like, you're talking about like playing shows and charging 10 or 15, like whereas you can't put that on Bandcamp for 10 because like that 10 or 15 on Bandcamp doesn't mean the same at a show because
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
everyone
You're
has in
talking a
their hand.
fraction of that.
Yeah, everyone has their hand in this before you. And now with the way Bandcamp, like you don't even get paid. Like you don't even get paid like when somebody pays for something. And that opens a whole other can of worms when people are emailing you like 2 days after ordering something and you're like, I haven't even gotten paid for that yet. Like, can I not like pack this up and send it? Because like, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put ideas in anybody's head, but it's just like the way
Well, I think
that
it's
bands get
that's
paid.
got to be a problem of like Amazon and stuff where everybody's so used to that instantly getting it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, this is a one person label.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I saw earlier you post something like, hey, I finally got to the post office. I live 30 minutes away,
Yeah.
you know?
I do.
So it's just like, you got to have some patience.
Yeah.
It's not going to come to you in 5 days from
Yeah.
me. Like,
It's and it
we have lives outside of this. This is kind of hobbyist to a degree.
yeah, my kids are home all
Obviously
summer.
yours
It's
is
like, yeah.
it's like yours is far more than a hobby at this point, with a label and stuff. But it's just like, yeah, it's like, have some patience. It'll get there.
Yeah. It's
And yeah.
it's just it's wild. I mean, it wasn't like this 2 years ago. It wasn't like this, but it's like Bandcamp going through like three different hands in the last couple of years, and now they don't pay you right away, like they used to have a separate thing for like your streams, or your digital purchases, and you used to get paid for your physical purchases right away, but now it's just like they
Uh-huh.
kind of send you the money whenever. Sometimes it's the next day,
That's
sometimes
interesting.
it's 2 days. It's been like 4 days for me, and that wasn't even like on a weekend. So I was like, I don't understand why that's like that. But like, like I said, it's like it's got to the point where it's like I've had people like I've had people cancel orders, and like I literally already shipped it. So it's like
Oh
I'm not
man.
doing that anymore, you know?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
and Stripe, if somebody pays with a credit card, it's like it can take even longer cuz that goes straight to your bank account. Like
Uh-huh.
so that's between the store that they bought it from and Stripe and then your bank account. So it can like take like a week. And people are like,
Oh man.
hey, can I get a tracking? And I'm like, when I can't, like, I don't know you, like there's
Yeah.
some people like, it's like you see that name often enough. You're like, they're good. You're
Right.
like, okay, they're good. But like, yeah, I mean, it's like, nah, I don't know you. I,
Yeah, I haven't personally had to deal with like the band camp end of stuff in either band I'm in. Um, so I didn't actually know that it takes that much time, and I just learned with Jason through the violent abuse stuff about how much of a cut they're taking,
yeah,
and
cause it's
the
not,
processing fees, the
yeah,
PayPal
hey,
fees,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm like, what? Like, what's this bullshit?
Yeah.
So yeah, you see that, and you're like, okay, so that $10 shirt's now a $6 shirt.
Right.
We've now that, yeah. So you start seeing how much of a cut you take, and you're like,
And
well, it's not
also,
very in our benefit to sell shit on there, kind of.
yeah. Also, like they keep doing this thing for the past 2 years. They've said that it's cool. They're not doing it. But a couple years ago, they passed this law where if you, so it was $20,000. For anything less than $20,000, you could be considered a hobby business, and you wouldn't have to pay taxes on that, right?
Oh,
Like
right, right.
you were like they're like you should, but like they wouldn't come after you. They lowered that
Mm-hmm.
from 20 grand. They lowered it to $400.
Oh, Jesus
So
Christ.
like theoretically, like they've waived it the last couple years because they don't have the IRS to chase down every like band that does $400 in digital sales or whatever. So like one of these days they're gonna stick to that, and then everybody who's done $400 worth of T-shirts or just digital sales or anything will be paying up to 33%. So the 9% that PayPal takes, the 15% that Bandcamp takes, that's 24%, and then 33% from the government is 57%. Like
Holy
you're getting
shit.
nothing. So like when people are like, "Why are records $20?" it sucks. And
I
so
wish they would tax, like corporations like that. That'd be cool.
yeah, they should get.
Fuck.
I mean, if they did that to one Jeff Bezos or one Elon Musk, they could leave the rest of us the hell of alone, But like,
Yeah, for sure. That's
like
$400 though. Like that's
from
such a low
20
amount.
grand to $400, like
Yeah, you're
that is
talking
just
like 40 items total, maybe. Like
yeah,
you could,
it's
it would
bonkers.
take nothing to do $400.
Yeah, and that's not even the $400. From what I understand, is also like that's just $400. That's not like the $400 that you get. That's just like
Right.
four
You're
hundred
just
dollars.
talking 400 gross. Like
Yeah,
that's
like
ridiculous.
you like shipping, like
Yeah.
you're like, oh my gosh, that's I don't know, like how like 16 LPs, something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah. Like that's nothing at all. Like,
yeah,
yeah, especially yeah, you start talking $20 LPs with shipping and everything.
yeah, yeah,
Like you're gonna hit $400 in no time.
yeah. So it's like for sure, it's like I would I would love to just like turn off Bandcamp and just like do like a show every month and just be like, I'll come as close to you as I can. Like
Hmm.
I'll do one
Yeah.
show. I'll drive 8 hours there. I don't know. It sounds ridiculous,
Right.
but it's just like all the just like all the every way that they make it easier for you to reach people and like get your stuff to people. Like they're just like, how many fingers can we have in this deal? Like how many hands can we
Right.
get on that pie?
How
It's
much harder can we make it to get money actually in your pocket from your product, from your music,
yeah,
from your merchandise? Yeah.
yeah. All of the it's like all of the like nobody. It's like the all of the like hours and hours that you spent like folding these cardboard things and like all this stuff, and it's like when it's your own band and when it's a band that you like love and you're like, oh, I love these people and like this music is amazing and like you know but it's like there's even when it's your band and stuff, it's like after that first 100 you're like, this is work.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, for
I'm
sure.
not as into it as I was. It's still
Yeah.
awesome, but yeah, I don't know,
It
but
just gets harder. I mean, once you have a life with kids, work, I mean, it's just you really got to prioritize your time differently than we did when, we were in our early 20s and it was just like time was infinite, it felt like.
yeah, I mean, I got chores, I got
Yeah,
I
for
got kids.
sure.
It's like you don't understand. It's like, oh, it's It's just another couple people living in your house. Like it's not that big a deal. But like kids, like you're a multi instrumentalist, and so am I. So is Jason. It's wild. Like between the three of us, we could make like 100 really awesome bands. But anyway, which instrument did you start on?
I started on guitar.
Okay.
I started playing when I was 15. My stepdad was a musician. He mainly played piano, but played guitar. And he had this old acoustic with like a steel top on it. It was like this real bluesy old school. I think it was from the 50s. He got it from some friend, and I learned a Blink 182 riff. I had him teach me on it, was the first thing I learned. And then just, yeah, snowballed from there.
Yeah. Um, how long did you play guitar before you were playing in bands and stuff?
I mean, pretty quickly, actually. So I got a guitar. I ordered my first Squire Strat, got a hold of this little Marshall combo amp, and had other friends that were playing around the same time. And we threw a band together, and I was just like, I guess I can sing, and I couldn't. And we played just horrendously bad music. It was some bastardized version of kind of punk, street punk, pop punk, I don't know, skate punk, kind of all mixed together. And I was doing that like within 6 months. I had no idea how to play guitar really. Another guy was playing that was way better. And then I spent the next year just playing nonstop. Most of those guys, we started another band. And by that point, I was actually writing all the songs and kind of honing my craft more, I guess.
When you were first starting to write your own songs, like in that particular style, do you feel like a lot of it was like this is this is kind of like what this other band does, but I'm doing like putting my own spin on it? Or how do you feel like, if you can sort of draw back that far,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
feel
So
like
like
that started for you?
even to this day, I always draw inspirations from like other music I'm listening to. I'll hear a riff or an idea, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. How can I put my spin on something like that? And I'll, nowadays, like I'll try to learn the riff and be like, okay, here's this chord progression. That's cool. And try to do my own version of it, and sometimes I remember I'd even try to like borderline copy a song, and I'd get done, I'd be like, oh, this sounds nothing like what I thought I was writing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, because I mean, at the time, especially that second band, when I really started writing stuff, I was listening to a lot of like MXPX Poking At Ya. Like the riffs on that album to me are so cool. Like these 16-year-old Christian punks, nonetheless, like wrote some of my favorite riffs to this day. And I think back to how weird it is that I'm like looking up to these 16-year-olds, as a 20-something-year-old. like, man, I wish I could write cool riffs like that.
It's always like that though, isn't it? It's like
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Like, I think I got better at writing songs, but like I look back at some of the lyrical stuff back then. I was like, man, I was way better at writing lyrics when I was younger. Like I don't know. It's one of those probably being too critical on myself, but it
There's
was
a
just like I was so impassioned and so just full of anger and rage then, and now I'm older. Life's, I got a family. I've chilled out a lot. So I just don't get as fired up, I guess, maybe. And I just sometimes feel like I'm less passionate than I was, or feel like a phony sometimes, that sort of stuff.
it's I think it's different, it's like not that it's not that you don't think you can do anything about your like anger or whatever, but it's like, to me it just feels like, damn, I've been mad about the same shit for so long. Like, how much more can I say about it?
Yeah,
Almost.
yeah, for sure.
And it's like, not, I don't know. It's not like I don't ever feel like, oh yeah, well, I guess I said all that I want to say. It's just like it gets harder for me to say something that feels like it it gets harder for me to say something that feels like that I get the same release as like the last time when I was trying to like breach that, uh have that level of catharsis. Like, you can't, it's just like, the first time when you hit this thing and you're like, oh shit, I said it. Like, I've said the thing that I've been trying to say. And like, you feel like you cross some threshold or something. And then like, later you're like, still angry. You're still pissed about it, and you're like, I guess I didn't get it out. And it's like, how did, like, I mean, there's a million problems in the world, right? And it's
Uh-huh.
wild when you sort of feel like you can distill them all down to, like, we know like where so much of the root of all these problems are now,
Hmm.
and it's just like, in one way, shape, or form, like, I feel like I'm always complaining about like capitalism and what that does to our lives, like
Yeah,
what it does,
right.
like what it makes people do to each other and act to the way they act to each other because of this, and the
Hmm.
way that politicians use it to to pit people against each other, and all these things. And it's like, how many different ways can I express myself that, like, like, oh, I'm making an allegory out of it this time, I'll do this, and um even when I'm not like explicitly complaining about these things, like, they are rooted in all the things that oppress like people everywhere. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it's like, you once you cross that, then how do you cross it again? Like, when you are aware of what's going on to a degree, it's like it should be easier to be upset about it, but without feeling defeated by it. There is a time where you can just feel worn down by it. And so
Oh, yeah.
it's
I'm
like,
very much there for
yeah,
sure.
it's just like,
Yeah,
that's when I really enjoy, being able to like play drums and stuff like that. Like,
right.
sometimes I'm like, there's stuff about different instruments that I like, for different reasons, and that's one thing, like, that I love about playing drums is just how visceral it is, and how like, it's there's a there's almost like a tantric state that I can get in, even like, that I don't get in when I'm playing guitar or whatever. Like, guitar is too cerebral for me. Like, it's like, I had to think about it too much or something, you know.
Uh-huh.
But drums is just like you just start hitting the drums, and the next thing you know, your
Yeah.
knuckles are bleeding, and you got bruises on your
Yeah, you
legs, and
just
you're
beat
like,
the shit out of them,
yeah,
you know? You can just
and
take it out on those things.
yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
like it's even if even if it's even if it's not like even if you aren't back there just wailing on him, even if you're just in a different like it's the percussive like the pure just like force that's coming from all sides of you is just I don't know, it's like a weighted blanket of sound or something, you know? It like it
Yeah,
feels
yeah, for
good,
sure.
you know? Um
Yeah, you always feel good when you get done smashing on the drums for sure. Just
yeah,
kind of, it's a good release for sure.
then I'm like hobbling up the stairs because I'm like old and I'm like I refuse to like do things differently, you know, to where it's like,
Right.
you know, I'm like oh, like no, I'm okay. I still got it. I'm fine.
Yeah, like
I'm
I've
fine.
had to start stretching before I play shows, which
Yeah.
is very foreign to me because it's like, oh, I threw my back out last show, so it's like I better stretch before I
No,
start
yeah.
drumming,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you're just like, oh man, I'm feeling my age tonight.
We did a tour where we toured with uh this band Capacities and their guitar player like Tom like he plays bass on some of the Coma albums. Um but Tom was doing yoga before the shows, and so we started
Hmm.
doing yoga with him, and it was so good. It was like
Oh,
we
I bet.
we played, and like after we played, it was like none of that like bang over or whatever you want to call it. You know, it
Right.
was so good. I was like. I was like, when I get home, I'm gonna continue to do yoga like all the time, and I didn't because it's like,
Yeah. Right.
because I
Yeah.
didn't have like
You
a,
get home, get back in the routine.
it wasn't even like because I'm lazy. It was like because I don't have like a personal instructor. I can't. It's not the same to me with like a YouTube video or whatever, you know. Like, so I was
Uh,
just like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess I'm just going back to that. But um, so how long was it before you started like branching out into other instruments, and what was the like, what was the sort of, you know, was it just like, hey, this would be cool, or was it a situation where it was like, I can never get a drummer. I'm gonna play drums.
exactly that. Pure necessity. So I
Yeah.
live in a super small town, you know, population's maybe 30,000 now. Nobody likes punk music. In high school, I was literally one of maybe two punk rock kids. And then there was, a couple more at the other school in the town over. And actually, one of them's Ryan, who plays guitar in Simp now. Me and him were like the only two people really wearing the costume, I guess you could say, and actively like looking different. So yeah, couldn't find anybody to play drums. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn to play drums. And so when I was about, gosh, I don't know, maybe like 18 or 19, I bought a drum set off of a friend, started pounding away, taught myself to play drums, listening to My Chemical Romance's Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge and just old punk albums and stuff. And yeah, just totally self-taught. I always say that I'm just good enough at drums to trick somebody that doesn't know anything. But if you're an actual drummer, I'm fucking terrible. Um, but yeah, I told somebody recently because now I'm playing guitar again in a band for the first time in like 18 years. It's been super long. Uh, they said, you look more natural on guitar. And I was like, yeah, drums are like a loveless marriage that I'm staying in for the kids. And guitar is like my lover that we make sweet passionate love with. I love guitar. It's the instrument that I want to play. But drums, yeah, it was totally necessity, 100%.
Do you feel like you picked it up easily? Like, did playing guitar beforehand like make the transition smoother? Do you feel, or was it just like starting from scratch?
Probably to some degree. It's hard to say because it's been so long. But yeah, I just started working on simple, 4/4 beats, and then started speeding them up, and just kept kind of adding to the repertoire of just stuff I learned to do. eventually, I spent a lot of time during college just recording one man band type stuff where, I'd play all the instruments, do vocals. And then in about like 2006 or so, maybe 2007, I started the first band where I actually played like drums. It was kind of like a serious band, and I did drums and vocals like I do in Simp. And that was like my first foray in power violence as like playing publicly and stuff. I'd kind of done stuff like leaning into that genre to a degree, playing guitar with one friend, but we only played like a couple shows. But that was kind of the first band where I really was like the drummer, And then some other ones branched off from just stuff that I'd written. Like I had just this batch of songs I wrote, never did vocals to, sent it to a buddy. He recorded vocals. Guy I was playing with in the power violence band played guitar, I played drums, played a couple shows, stuff like that.
Do you feel like when you do you feel like when you play drums that you like where do you feel like you're at in the headspace of like creativity as far as are you I feel like I when I do drums on something, I know what the guitars are going to go like and I know what the guitars need and I have a hard time taking it further than that because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's like a anyone who's really good at drums is gonna they would roll their eyes at this idea because like you're really good at drums. I'm telling you, whoever's listening to this that thinks this is a bad idea, you're good at drums. I'm not. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can fit the song. So like I always feel like there's like a hierarchy, right? Where it's like the guitars like if the drums are if there's going to be vocals over these guitars, then you already shouldn't crowd the guitars out because the vocals are going to be the main thing at the top anyway. So like you're kind of the drums are just like you're going to service the song. The song is what's most important. And that
Mm-hmm.
means like that vocally you're going to be up here and then guitars and bass in the same general area and then your backbone, your drums. And
Uh-huh.
then if specifically because you wrote the song, with a couple other folks and there's not going to be any vocals, then you can like you're like, well, something should be doing the thing there. But like sometimes like good drummers, like they can do all kinds of things where it doesn't feel forced or crowded or whatever, even when there's vocals, even when there's all this other guitar stuff happening. Where does your mind go as far as like when you are writing something, maybe completely by yourself, and you're just like, okay, now it's time to think about the drum track? Or is it not that, like, is it not that deep? Is it just like the drums are what the drums are?
Yeah, to me, drums are always secondary when I'm writing. Like it's guitar first. Like that's just how my mind functions is in guitar. I think in guitar, like I probably play drums in guitar to a degree where I follow that stuff too much. So yeah, I'm always starting with like something that I've written on guitar. A lot of times if I'm doing it by myself, I'll just use like my voice recorder on my phone. I'll
Mm-hmm.
record a guitar track and then I get down on drums, put some earbuds in, and then figure out drums to that. And then once I get like a rough idea down, then I'm gonna try to add in some like fills and some other cool stuff, maybe a transition. But I'm just not that good, so like I struggle with that to begin with. And I mean, like I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I mean, you play with Jason, so
Mm-hmm.
he's able to just throw stuff in where it's so fucking cool. I would never think of that, and it doesn't, like you're saying, it's not crowding or it just fits and it just sounds so cool. And you might not even hear it if you're, because like when I hear a song, my ears instantly tune into the guitars and I'm listening it for riffs, transitions, switches from, you know, part to part, and then drums are kind of a secondary thing that I'll listen to maybe. And when you're playing with somebody that's good and you can just hear the things they can throw in, you're like, as somebody that plays drums, I'm just like, God, I suck at drums. Like, I wish I could do a fraction of this, you know? Like, for instance, I sent Jason a demo for a Violent Abuse song, and it's a guitar track. And he was kind of talking with the demo and stuff that he, like, felt like he held back maybe a little on, like, doing fills and stuff. And I was like, add as much shit as you can do. There's just two of us. Like, let's make this sound as gnarly as it can. I was like, you know, just cook on the drums, man. Just go for it. And he sent back to this track I wrote, you know, and I hear drums in my head to it, but I think it's going to be. He sent back something that was so not even in the realm of what I was thinking, and it sounds so fucking awesome. And it made the song guitar like just sound 10 times cooler to me, you know. Yeah. So when you can work with somebody that can do that, it's so cool because yeah, like my headspace is, all right, I have this guitar track. I like this, what I got here. Now I need to get drums for it so that I have a full song, kind of.
It's weird when it's like, you know, there's a point where you can have spent too much time, like where you think this is the way that these drums would go, to where like you can spend too much time to where anything that's not that would be like alien. Mm-hmm. But there's like there's that window where it's like you're just like open to anything, and that's the best when it's just like, yeah, I would not have done that at all. Sometimes, like, not in Jason's case necessarily, but just in other instances, sometimes it's been like, I would not have done that at all, and I think there's a reason for that. Like, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
That's just people that I just didn't gel with as much, you know? But,
right.
Yeah, but, like, I'm always like, you know, I don't know if you feel similarly sometimes, but it's like, I'm always like, I know more than like 4 drum beats. Why do I always keep going back to these same 4? You know, like why?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, yeah, like we should make hardcore weirder. We should make screamo weirder. You know, like we should be doing. Mm-hmm. And in my defense, when I've done that, I did. And not that this really shapes like my desires or my response, but like when I've done weirder, when I've done whatever, like I did not get the positive reinforcement that I, you know, like it was like I did weirder and people were like, that's weird. And that was it, right?
Go back to the other thing we like.
Yeah. Can we get more, can we just get strawberry again? Because this, like, this vanilla curry oatmeal is not good, you know? Can we just get strawberry oatmeal again? But, like, yeah, it's, there's a, like, you know, I keep dancing around this idea of, like, does it serve the song? And like we're talking about, I think we're in a similar place as far as like what we're capable of on the drums, right? So like just from listening, you know, to Simp earlier and stuff. And I will say that I'm not like to stop being self-deprecating for a minute. I will say that sometimes I do realize I'm better than I give myself credit for. Like I hold my end of the bargain on the drums like well enough, you know? So
Hmm.
so there's that. But like, you know, when we're saying like, oh yeah, and it you know, like where where do you sort of decide like, and is there a decision making sort of period where you do you ever just like, I shouldn't go with the first thing that comes to mind, and so you're sort of pushing against that idea that came organically?
Yeah, yeah, for
how
sure.
how long do you how long do you like sit on something? How long do you like, what's it like when you're like, okay, I'm going to try something that I just would not try, and we're going to see if this works? And like, what's your rate been like as far as that? Is it 50-50? You're like, nah, that really sucked and I should have just went with my first idea? Or like, what's that experience been
Yeah,
like?
yeah. So that's like certainly a thing because, especially with like drumming and simp, I write a lot of the songs on guitar as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard not to just feel redundant, for sure. Like a lot of it's very similar in my mind, and song structures, even the timing on songs, like 45 seconds. That's about a time frame I apparently like to write songs in. So it's like I'll what I do a lot of times is, I'll have like a riff or something and I'll just kind of like, all right, that's pretty cool, play on it for a day or so. Sometimes like a full song just comes to you. I mean, I'm sure you know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens and it's just like, all right, that's it. And that's awesome. Like I dig it. But I come back to stuff for sure. And then I'll be like, I just have literally thousands of voice recording files of riffs, drum parts, whatever that I come back to. And I'm like, oh, hey, I forgot about that, and then maybe I'll find a different ending to it, or I'll just kind of like freestyle parts after, like, I'll be like, okay, I know this is the verse. Like, I know this is going to be this riff. And then I'll just fuck around and you just kind of start finding different things, come back. Ooh, this is actually cooler than that. And it's the same thing with the drums. Like, I'll lay down kind of a basic idea and then I'm like, all right, how can I add more to this so it's just not the same thing? And kind of on the last record we just did, um, I I branched out more on that kind of stuff. So like for me as a pretty simplistic drummer, I added way more little things that I normally wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it just comes right away. But like this last album that Simp put out, I wrote it in like a 2 week period, probably. I always say that the spirit was flowing through me, the hardcore spirit. And, it was flowing through me during the holidays. And from like, around Christmas time till mid-January, I had just written 15 songs and recorded demos of all of them, Not all of them had lyrics necessarily, but it was just one of those times like I just was super inspired and just every day got home from work, went down and just played music for, an hour every day, had these riffs that I was working out on the drums and all right, cool. I'm going to record this demo real quick, send it to the guys. Hey, what do you think of this? Get some suggestions here and there. So yeah, it's one of those. I don't know what the percentage would be, but I know that I'll get in those modes where you're like, I hate everything I'm doing right now. Like I hate every riff I'm writing.
Mm.
I'm just redoing the same thing. Like I'm just being fucking redundant, and I'll record it and then come back to some of that stuff later on, whether it's the next day, week later, months later, and then you're like, oh, hey, that's actually like, there's a cool part in there I can pull out. And I have this other part that oh, those go together. So there's definitely that sort of stuff for sure.
Yeah. How often do you like have like a couple guitar parts and you just lay down a whole song worth of drums and piece in the other guitar parts over whatever drums you might have thrown in there? Do you ever do that? Or
Not really. It's generally more like I have a guitar thing written out
Okay.
fully that I'm kind of taking to the drums, but there has been times where I'll hear something in my head, whether it's a drum part, like, oh, that would be super cool, and then I'll write a riff around it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the big things that I love in music, and this stems back to Propaganda, particularly in the album Today's Empires or Tomorrow's Ashes, the transitions they have in that album from like an intro or a bridge into like a super fast part, like that shit just gets me so fucking pumped. Like I get so jacked. Like the beginning of Idle Homes or like Idle Hands for Idle Homes, like I fucking it gets me so fucking pumped, and I'm always trying to find ways to have transitions from like one part to the next that are cool, whether it's like a drum fill doing it or some like guitar riff that's only one count, or something. So that's something I'm always trying to think about, and I struggle with doing. And when I hear bands that do it well, I'm just like, oh, how does your brain work like that? Because, like, again, I get into the redundancy of like, okay, we play this riff for 4 counts, this riff for 2 counts, then we go to this for 4 counts, and it's breaking out of those just like very cookie cutter esque kind of just
Yeah.
rhythms, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely a struggle, but yeah, I'll have like a drum thing where it's like, okay, this is sick. I'm gonna figure out a way to write a riff around it.
Yeah. I I'm embarrassed because I don't know. I can't remember the name of the song offhand. I have the album on vinyl, but there's a song um, on Today's Empires that is mostly Todd vocals, and there's a there's there's only what I can just describe as like a it's like a breakdown, but it's like it just goes to like mid tempo, and it is just like a punch in the face. Like I will throw a chair through a window. Like it's just
Yeah.
like it's just insane, and like it's it's wild how you know good that band is, and you just like they I don't know. I feel like much like say Converge, like when Jane Doe came out, like that
Hmm.
that sort of was like, okay, this is what we sound like from now until forever. And like that's fine, and the same thing with Propaganda with that was the first album, right, with Todd on it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
I
was.
thought so. I get them. I'm getting them kind of out of order in my head, but I thought that was the one. And so they've sort of pretty much like because the first couple albums they sounded wildly different from one another, and then wildly different from that one. And so
Yeah.
that's like they were like, okay, this was what we were going for. This is where we're at, and this is the way it's gonna be. And like, but they've just always come out with something that is just like there's the it may be on that same album, but there's the song with the Boys of Summer riff in it, and it's like Chris has always been like, oh, I rip off all kinds of artists, and like there ain't no way that wasn't a deliberate rip off of the Boys of Summer guitar.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Like it's like
Yeah.
so obvious, but yeah, I don't know. They just always have something that's like, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm still trying to achieve Todd's vocals on that album. I've been chasing it for the last 20 years. Like that's all I want to do is sound like Todd
yeah,
from
I
Today's
can
Empires. Like they're my favorite vocals of like punk and hardcore. They're aggressive, they're growly, they're rough and clear at the same time. Like they're so passionate sounding, and it's just like I've strived for that. I've never come close, but it's like that's what I want to do so
yeah,
badly.
what are you gonna do? There can be only one, right? It's like the
Yep,
Highlander
yep,
vocals. But
yep. Todd the Rod, he's the Highlander.
what you mentioned voice memos, and it got me thinking. Especially when you were talking about like when you purposely try to play something or try to copy something and it came out so different. And I've done that to just extreme degrees. And I even have I have a project that that I've recorded quite a while ago, and I'll probably finish it at some point, where I did that specifically. I was like, what? I was like, no, no context, no going back and listening to these songs or anything like that. But I'm just going to record these bands. Like, I'm going to record this song and not actually learn it and see how different it comes out. And it's wild. Like, it's not like I'm telling on myself right now, because like there's one I feel like that is kind of obvious, and people are going to be like, you just ripped that song off. And I'm like, I just ripped it off on purpose to see if it would be neat.
Yeah.
And like, do you have like just a little thing in your notepad too that's just like I'll give one of my notepad, this sounds so silly, but like it's like in my notepad it says staying alive guitar riff with blast beats. And that's like something I want to achieve. I want to but like I want to figure out how to make that sound cool, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, do you have? Is there a wild example you can give of some idea like that you've had?
Oh man, I don't know if I have like anything off the top of my head that I can think of like that, but I'll certainly hear music outside of, whatever genre I'm playing that I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to figure out a way to do something like that, but do it in the vein of hardcore, punk, whatever. That's a good question. I honestly can't think of anything off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I'm just staying alive with blast beats. I like the sounds of that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's yeah, there's a couple of other ones that come to mind that that I have done, that I have realized that I've not been called out on, but I have told people, and later they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can totally hear that now." But like one of them is and Jason knows about this one, but one of them is Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, but screamo. So that's one of them, and another one is Kissed by a Rose from Seal,
From Seal,
but screamo. Like I did that one also, and that one nobody ain't getting that one, but like nobody's gonna hear that one. But the people.
So are you actually like listening to like guitar parts from it, or are you doing more like the melody of the song?
I'm just doing like the vibe, you know?
Like,
yeah. Like I'm getting like a certain part, and I'm like, how do you do that? But like screamo and the Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Like if I told people that, like they'd be like, oh my gosh, how did I not hear that? Because that one I feel like is really obvious, but it's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And there's just going to be a ton of people, they won't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't listen to that. I listen to screamo.
Like what the fuck is Seal?
Yeah, exactly.
You mean the guy that
especially
ate a
now
loaf
with
of
some of the
bread
younger kids.
The guy that ate a loaf of bread on that flight? Like, yes, that guy. Like,
yep, that's the one.
If you hear about somebody doing something like that, like that's a real one. You're like, yeah. Like just yeah. Like this guy's been on peanut butter and jelly tours for sure. Like he's on a first class flight eating a whole loaf of bread.
That's so funny.
But speaking of tours, y'all are going out for is it 5 or 6 days?
So it's technically 4, but we're playing like the weekend, like 4 days before in Spokane. So we're playing Spokane August 10th, and then I think starting the 15th, we're playing Moscow, Olympia, Tacoma, and Eugene, Oregon.
Okay. And is this the first thing since like the release, since the release of the Violent Abuse demo and like with having tapes and stuff like that?
Yeah, we've only played 2 shows so far. We'll have our third right before that, because I mean, as you know, like obviously Jason's very far away from you, but it's a 2 hour drive for me to get to where he lives. So practicing, isn't the easiest. It's not
Yeah.
like my other band where you can practice like every week. It'd be cool if it was. Um, so, we've been doing a lot of stuff over the internet. And luckily, he's such a solid musician that by the time you show up to practice, he's ready to rehearse because he's already practiced everything.
Yeah.
And I'm very much that way too. Like I like to get stuff done. So it's been a good blend for both of us because we're both pretty good about like being on point with like, all right, it's time to do this. Let's do it. So, like as of now, we have the demo done, but we have another 20 plus songs pretty much in the bank ready to go for other releases. So, um,
So what's
we're
a
playing
set like?
another.
Is it like 20 songs
So,
or?
yeah, right now, actually, that's exactly how many it is. So, like the set we're playing we kind of just are calling it our summer set right now.
Yeah.
And it's a 20-song set. Jason just, we practice all these songs in person. And then Jason sent me just a drum track of him playing it through straight. And then I've just been practicing guitar to it. And I'll play through it a couple times a day, most days, just to be kind of on point with it. And then we were able for the first show to practice right beforehand, and it went way better than I would have ever imagined. It was awesome. Response was super cool from like people in the Spokane area, and then the next show, like we didn't get a jam together beforehand, and it went really good too, actually. So far it's working pretty well, and yeah, I think it's just gonna be rad. Like so far, response has been like awesome
That's
across
awesome.
the board, like which has been really rad.
Yeah, I don't ever worry about Jason fucking up. Or like
Yeah.
Nate for that example. Like I 100% am like I'm the weak link in Coma Regalia. Like I write all the songs and stuff, but like I'm the weak
Uh-huh.
link because I'm
Oh,
I'm too
I
emotional. I'm like,
totally feel that way.
ugh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's like I am the worst musician, even though I'm like writing this stuff. Yeah, I totally feel that sentiment.
It's like I'm like I'm the one that has to like talk myself into being okay, like to go and play in front of people. I'm the one that has to like, you know, um, like I'm the one that has to be like, give myself the pep talk, before the show.
Right,
Everybody else
right.
is like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're good, and I'm just like, I'm gonna fall apart. but
Do you get nervous anymore when you play shows? Like, do you get really nervous beforehand?
I do because it's not so often anymore,
Right. Yeah.
since like all the last few years it's just not. So when we were touring like uh when we were touring every year for a couple weeks at a time, like I really felt the most comfortable just like getting on a stage like uh just like um I don't know what word I'm looking for, like raw, just getting right up there. No,
Yeah.
no psyching myself up, no whatever. But like, since, not playing as much and just like just having a zillion more worries, you know, at the show
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Like, I'm just way in my head and I'm a mess a lot of the times. And, it's
It's
like, it's fine. 'Cause like, I think people are, we're all there to like be there and be
mhm.
there with each other. And, um, like that's always meant a lot to me. And as long as I can keep doing that, like I'll keep doing that. And so I just I don't like to watch videos and stuff after the fact because I'm like, oh gosh, I was a mess. Like I'm not professional, But like when you're sometimes when you're singing about this stuff that like you wrote this stuff because you're like coming unraveled. And so
Uh-huh.
it's like, wow, what a shock that when she was singing this stuff, she came unraveled. You know, it's like, what a surprise. You
Right.
know, um,
Yeah.
so I don't. I used to be hard on myself, and now I just don't observe myself in that state as much.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
weird because now I don't get nervous like I used to. When I was younger, it was like total anxiety. Oh, I got to go take anxiety poops. Like I'm dying inside. And then I'd start going and then it's fine. But now, like, I don't know. I lost whatever part that was that got me super nervous, kind of. I
mm-hmm.
was definitely more nervous for like the first Violent Abuse show because it was the first time I was playing guitar and singing in 18 years, you know. So that was like, oh, I'm a little nervous about it. But the second I got up there and started, I just, all of it went away, you know.
Yeah,
I was more nervous about like, I don't want to look like I'm just standing there, you know? Like I
yeah,
want to look like yeah, like I don't want to look stupid and just like I don't know, like I was in my head about that like what do I do with a guitar? Like how do I look like how do I move with it? How do I sing at the same time, you know? And got done and people were like that was sick, you know, like having people come up onto the stage after we finished to, you know, as we're getting putting stuff away to tell us how cool it was. Like that's the first time I've had that happen. You know, have multiple people come up to be like, "Yo, what the fuck?" So it's like, okay, I must not look too dumb, you know.
yeah.
And
It's
so that kind of killed that anxiety a little bit. But I don't know. It's weird. Like I just don't. I've somehow gotten out of my head more with that stuff than I used to be.
that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I I'm like none of us ever ended up in punk because we were the cool kids at school and because we were good dancers or because we were attractive, you know, conventionally attractive or
Uh-huh.
et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
it's like sometimes like when you're sort of seeing yourself like outside of yourself like that and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
like I am just as awkward or whatever as like I've always thought I am, and this is difficult to watch, you know. But it's yeah, I don't know. It's like it's it, it it's nice to be because when you're sometimes when you're watching it after the fact, it's like you're not thinking about like everybody else felt the same way, you know.
Uh-huh.
But when you're there, it's like yeah, everybody felt the same way, and everybody was there in the moment and everybody wasn't scrutinizing like every single thing that happened. They're just like being a part of it, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I've noticed like recently, so it's something you know, that I've had to work on, you know, we're talking about like beating yourself up and just like not having the confidence in your ability, even though you know how to do this stuff. Like, um, since I started playing music again, because I had about, you know, a solid 10-year hiatus of not playing, just having a family start and just not really having people to play with. The band I was in back in like the early, like 2006 to 2008 ish, we played in Spokane all the time. It was kind of how my bands are. Like no one where I live wants to hear punk music, so I got to go to Spokane to play. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
couple hours away, and I start running into all these people that were like, "Yo, dude, that band was like so sick." Like, and hearing how much of an impact I had on people that I didn't realize all these years later. Like Jason even telling me like, "You're the reason I got good at drums," and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I saw Waylon play, and you play drums," and I was like, "I got to get better at drums," and I was like, "Well, you succeeded.
Yeah.
Like you're significantly better than me. I was terrible, but." To have these interactions with people and realize like how much value and happiness I've brought to these people through my music or just through me as a person and accepting that like I'm valuable to people and like I make a difference in people's lives and acknowledging that myself has been huge for me because it's like man as much as I am in my head just you're a fucking piece of shit, you suck, all that, you know, negative self-talk that
Mm-hmm.
we all have, I think, that are definitely if you're in the punk scream of all those scenes, it's certainly in your head, you know. uh to just accept like that I have value to these people and I've added something to their lives, and like that's fucking so cool. And like I really try to think about that a lot, and like it, as much as I felt like I was such an asshole back in the day, you know, just to hear these people be like, man, like that was so cool. Like I was nervous to talk to you, and it's just like, what? Like I'm nobody, you know?
Yeah.
So I've been really like trying to focus on like the positive parts of what music has done for people that I've made, you know, and shit. And it's like, I don't know. I've been super stoked on that lately. It's been such a cool thing to think about and just acknowledge, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean it's totally like it's just wild to think that like even if it was just for 15 minutes while they listened to your album or saw your set, that like people had a good time, and like you you helped them like get out of like, you know, their parents that treat them like shit, or like
Hmm.
their fucking shitty job that they hate. Like you help them get out of that
Yeah.
for like 15 minutes, you know, like uh while they like ripped some songs, you know, like it's
Yeah.
just, and you
Our
might never
guitarist
meet those people,
brother.
but it's like damn, you know.
Yeah, like, and now I'm meeting the people, you know, 15 years later telling me that, and you're like,
Yeah.
I had no idea at the time, you know? So to hear that, you're like, oh, that's so fucking cool that I did that for you without knowing it, you know? And it like,
Yeah, I was doing it for
yeah, it
me,
just gets you
but
so, yeah,
yeah.
because like, and then you think about it and you're like, yeah, I have so many instances of bands where this, you know, I've felt that way, and I obviously never vocalize it to them. So now I've made a point, like when I see stuff, to tell people. Like for instance, I got to see Iron Lung for the first time, who might be my favorite power violence band of all time.
Mm,
They're like the reason I do this. I finally got to see him down in Portland, and after the set, I talked to the drummer Jensen, and I told him like, "You're the reason why I do this," you know. And he was super cool and super pumped on it, you know. And it's one of those, I would have been so nervous to do that before when I was younger, a fear of like rejection, maybe they'll be a dick or whatever. And it's like, no, like people want to hear that. I want to hear that. So why wouldn't he want to hear it, you know?
yeah.
And, and yeah, like you could tell like he was genuinely like, oh, that's sick, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to make a point to do that. Like I'm very much of the opinion of like, or practice now where I try to have like some sort of positive interaction with somebody every day. Like
Yeah.
try to be a smile on somebody's face at some point in a day, you know, for myself and for them, because it's just so much fucking negativity and just hate and division. And it's just, people are so scared of each other now. And it's just like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. You know, I spent so many years just being negative and just finding the worst in everything. And I'm really working hard to find the good and stuff, you know, and try not to focus on that as much as I can. And it's definitely made me happier. It's been nice,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
it's hard, man. It's really hard. These, you know, in the times we're in, it's tough.
Yeah. Um well, that's I think that's a really good sentiment to sort of end on, but are there any like things that you want to talk about that are coming up that, you know, before we sort of take off here? Like we already talked about the tour. You said, you know, that y'all got like 20 new songs. Like is that what's next, like just like working on the new songs and getting another
Yeah,
release out
yeah,
there?
yeah, for sure. So we got hit up by a guy, then I think we're gonna try to hook up with him to put out like a little tape of some sort. A localish dude. So we got that coming up, and then we're really putting some time into. We want to try to get a 7-inch made of an album called Shame of Purity, and it's going to focus more on like religious trauma type stuff. Kind of one of the like goals with Violent Abuse, sort of, is like the first album's very much a concept album about my father, his alcoholism, and the effects it had on me, our family, himself, and just like ignoring neglect and his own trauma. And so it's kind of one of those things where we're trying to work within like a certain parameter of an idea, like conceptually on albums. So that's one we're gonna like definitely take some more time and really, really like make sure we're honing in like the lyrics and stuff and getting across like these messages. Cause, you know, me and Jason both come from, you know, pretty chaotic childhoods with lots of trauma and stuff. And, yeah, it's been just like super cathartic to, you know, easily the most personal stuff I've ever written. You know, it's not these big ideas that are so like removed from me to a degree, you know, or these issues that are, you know, across the world or whatever. It's like, this was in my home, you know, and writing about that and like really did a lot for me personally. And it's the first time I've ever done that and gotten like vulnerable with my music in that way, and a personal level. So yeah, it's been super sick. I'm super pumped for the future. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what happens.
And that was my conversation with Kyle Schmitt. Thank you so much, Kyle, for taking the time to chat with me. I really had a blast. I hope that wherever you're listening, you had a blast as well. Go check out some Propagandhi albums. Go check out Simp and Violent Abuse. And until next time, take care and do good things.